Outdoors here on Cave Run Lake, and with another episode of the Get Outdoors with Hook Outdoors podcast. Today we are going to talk about the changes in tournament fishing from years ago, even 10, 15 years ago, pre-internet and all that kind of thing. On a side note, since we did our podcast yesterday on March the 2nd, today's March the 3rd, the lake here has risen 3 feet. We were at 13 foot above which was 6 foot above winter pool. Winter pool is where we started, so it was a total of 19.1 feet. And I guess as of now, in total, we are about 22.1 feet from where we started basically a week ago. And the bulk of that has came in the last couple of days. So it doesn't show any signs of letting up. Hope it does here in the next couple of days, but they still haven't opened up the spillway as of yet. So maybe if they can do that, it will at least slow it down a little bit. But anyways, we're going to get back to our discussion here, and we've talked about it some previously, but as we mentioned in our show yesterday, Evan has his first BFL tournament. He's fishing in the mountain division, and his first tournament is at Dale Hollow Lake here this coming Saturday. So we're just going to talk about for a little while how tournament fishing has changed, and kindly just get into that for the next little bit. So hopefully y'all can find some interesting stuff here today. So Evan, just you being a young angler, how has it changed as far as you can see, looking back from, maybe when your dad was fishing, before you were even old enough to go fishing with him and that kind of thing?
There's been huge changes in the whole tournament fishing game. You have more opportunities through, different divisions and different, companies to go, fish tournaments and make your way up to eventually, if you want to, become a professional fisherman. And I think that new exposure for tournament fishermen came directly through social media. Like before the podcast, me and Dan were talking a little bit about, back in the day, like me being 17 years old, if I wanted to go, fish a bunch of tournaments or something like that, I couldn't get on, I couldn't go to, FLW's website or Bassmaster's website or anything like that. And I couldn't, look at, when the tournaments are going to be and find a schedule and things like that. I would have to, just hear from, just someone that I know that fishes tournaments, or just hear it like in a paper or see it on a flyer at a tackle store or something like that. And, social media and, just not even social media, just really the internet as a whole, compared to like, when my dad and Dan and things like that were fishing tournaments, back in, 80s, 90s, things like that. You didn't have access to, just go on a website and look at a whole schedule. You could go look on, USA Bassin or NTBA's website or something like that, get a whole year-long schedule for every lake in the United States. Yeah. And it's just, that's the biggest change for me.
And one of the bigger things was, say 20 or 30 years ago, you had to pay your dues at your local lake just to get to know people, and it was more about physical networking then, knowing someone that knew someone and all that kind of thing, and I think the tackle shops played a bigger role then, because that's where you got a lot of your tournament information and a lot of your fishing information. They had all the fishing magazines, and they knew everything that was going on. A lot of them had connections to professional anglers, and that's one thing that I've noticed. If you look at some of the older videos, you just didn't see the number of what I would consider a young angler, an angler in their even early 20s, fishing in these big tournaments like that. A lot of those guys that, they were in their 30s, some of them even older than that, before they actually made it to I don't know what they called it back then, but basically the Elite Series now.
I think it was called like the Bassmaster like Top 150,
Yeah,
or something like that, or the Invitationals, or something like that back in the day. I think that's what it was called. But just going on what you said with say back in the day, like I've heard like Jacob Wheeler talk about this same thing. Like he come from around Indianapolis. They had several small lakes and things like that. That's kind of where he cut his teeth. And, started fishing tournaments, and that's where his career really started. And he's talked about, when he started tournament fishing, them old guys at the boat ramp before the tournament and after the tournament, weigh-in and things like that, would just kind of give him a weird look, and they thought he was just some, snotty kid out there fishing with them and things like that. And, eventually he started whooping up on them and taking their money, and, it's just things like that. It's new things like that. There's such a big field in young fishermen now, fishing big tournaments.
And I think there's several parts to that. One, I think from a corporate standpoint, these companies realize that they need to cultivate a new crop of anglers. And so there's a lot of promotion into that. They want these younger anglers that are catching fish and that are mainstream and so forth. And I think another part of it is these younger anglers are growing up with the technology that it takes to be a competitive fisherman now, whereas you take older anglers, even older professional anglers even, I don't think that they seem to, at least from what I see, they don't seem to embrace all the technology like a lot of these younger guys. And guys that we've even talked to, they run 3 setups basically. They run the Humminbird, the Lowrance, and the Garmin all in one boat.
Right.
And they'll have 2 screens on their console and 2 screens in the front, and that's just what they have to do to be competitive.
Right. That's another one of the biggest changes, in the fishing industry, from going from like 1990 or even like 2010. People were still running graphs and things like that in 2010, but not, nobody ran, 4 units on the, on the console, and then had 2 on the front and things like that. It's just little differences like that. And, going on, a little bit of a sidetrack from the graphs there for a second, just the access now to websites like Wired to Fish, Bass Resource, things like that. Organizations like Major League Fishing, Bassmaster, things like that. They're posting every single day. They're posting tips and tricks and how-tos, and you can go anytime on Wired to Fish's website or their YouTube channel and type in how to fish a Demiki rig or how to fish a Carolina rig or something like that, how to fish a crankbait, and you can always go and find videos after videos from fishermen like before this tournament. I was watching, learning a little bit about pre-spawn cranking and things like that on Highland reservoirs. And I got on Wired to Fish's website and I found a video of Lot Defoe catching them in the pre-spawn from water temperature, 48, 49, 50 in that ballpark, catching them on Douglas, which is down in Tennessee. It's a Highland reservoir. And, it kind of taught me a little bit of things, and, put something in my head, that I might go and try, and I might go and make work on Dell Hollow tomorrow and Friday and Saturday. So you never know. It's just things like you have so much access now to learning, whereas back in 80s and 70s and things like that, when guys like Guido Hibden, Roland Martin, Denny Brower, when those guys, the legends of the sport, when they were cutting their teeth and they were learning and catching these fish and winning tournaments in their prime, they didn't have that access. They simply had back their boat in water and go and try to catch fish.
And I know there's no substitute for time on the water, but like you were talking about, you have so much information at your disposal. You already have an idea of what you're going to do before you get there, and then it's just a matter of rigging it right and working on your technique and your presentation. Right. You're not just guessing. I mean, you know how to tie these things, you know where to fish them, and you know what kind of line to use and what colors and all like that already. So you're that much ahead of the game, and then it's just time on the water and figuring out where they work and what works best for you in a certain situation. And that's a big thing that I see in as far as there's just a wealth of information, and at times it can be overwhelming if you can overthink it, I guess. But that's a big deal, and I think there I go back, and this is from kind of a bait shop owner perspective. These companies see that, and they wouldn't have these websites and these sources of information available if they weren't monetizing it in some form or fashion. And that's just what I think. You know.
And going back to practicing, and you said there's no substitute for time on the water. It's a thing now to where when I go to a tournament, like I've had this tournament planned since sometime back in December that I knew I was going to go, and now here it is March. I put way more time in doing homework on just the tournament than I will in practice tomorrow and Friday.
Sure.
So I'm going to fish daylight to dark Thursday and Friday before the tournament, and I still won't even have as much time on the water in practice as I have off the water. Just looking at things like navionics, finding, looking at a certain creek. Say I go to look at Wolf River on Del Hollow, and I see this certain pocket in the creek that cuts off to the right. There's a good channel break at the front of it and all that stuff, and there's a big shallow flat in the back of it. Just looking for little subtle things like that on navionics, looking at Google Earth, finding, scrolling around and zooming in on the backs of pockets, seeing if there's stumps there, if there's bushes in the water, or, looking at, like the kinds of rocks or things like that are on the bank, seeing if it's like a slate bank or like a straight up and down vertical rock bank, just looking at things like that, putting in your homework. And then again, like I said earlier, with, watching videos constantly and, learning things, reading articles about certain things. And that's the thing, like where Dan was talking about earlier, how you already have an idea of what you're going to do when you go down there. Like, I knew just from looking at past tournament records on Del Hollow, looking at the patterns that work in the pre-spawn, things like that. I know baits like, a spinner bait, a bunch of different crankbaits, square bills, rock crawlers, things like that. Chatterbaits, rattle traps, Alabama rigs. I know certain things like that are going to work. So what I can do is I can go to Wired to Fish, Bass Resource, YouTube, any of those, and I can watch videos, read articles on maybe how to rip a rattle trap through deep cracks, because that's a pattern down on Del Hollow that works.
Right.
And I can go learn how to do that. Watch guys, in the industry that are the best in the world at doing it. Like I can go watch Buddy Gross snap a rattle trap through eelgrass all day, because I know that he's the best, probably the best at doing that in the world.
Right.
So it's just little things like that, putting in homework, for hours and hours and hours before I even see the lake. Just things like that's changed tournament fishing dramatically.
Yeah, you were talking about that, and I had read a post on Facebook by that Brian Latimer, and he was talking about, I guess he puts on clinics and stuff for kids and fishing and stuff.
Right.
And some kid that had been to one of his clinics had sent him a message that I don't exactly. The gist of it was the kid had this tournament and he just never had time to pre-fish, but he had done what that Brian Latimer had told him about doing, about studying maps and this and that, and long story short, he wound up coming in second in this tournament because he'd done his homework. And I think that's a big part of it, and it just that kind of thing, just a wealth of information out there. But as far as like our initial discussion of the actual tournaments, you basically have two top tier ways to go. You can fish BSS or you can fish the MLF, and they both have their trees, if you will, in order to qualify for the upper levels of those different organizations. Personally, maybe just because I haven't watched enough of it yet, but I just haven't been able to get enthused about watching the MLF. I like Bassmaster. It's always been on, TV or live stream or something like that. And even back when I was younger, there was always Bassmaster. And especially now where they have switched over to FS1, the coverage that they've had of the two Elite Series tournaments so far this year, and even their live streaming content that they put out there, gosh, you could just watch them all day long.
Yeah.
And I just haven't. Maybe it's just because the Red Crest or the MLF hasn't been that readily. The content hasn't been that readily available, or maybe I'm just not looking hard enough for it. I don't know. But I just, I tend to like the Bassmaster format better, at least for now.
Right. I'm that same way. I grew up, well, I'm only 17. I can't really say that. But even when I really first started watching, fishing tournaments, watching, bass tournaments, and really, that started my love for it was watching, in the 2010, 2011, in that ballpark, Bassmaster and FLW. You had guys on the FLW tour, you had your Scott Canterburys, Scott Martins, things like that. And then, on the Elite Series, you always had your normal, Skeet Reese, Kevin Van Dam, Gerald Swindle, had all those, legends of the sport. And then that's who I grew up watching, for years and years and years and years, watching these guys fish the FLW Tour and fish the Bassmaster Elite Series. But what changed the year before last, I believe, was Major League Fishing. They have always been around, though they've been around for about 10 years. But they've always done just the small, cup level tournaments. They just take 10 guys out of the Elite Series and FLW Tour. They still fish the Elite Series and FLW Tour, but on the side they fish this Major League Fishing Cup Series. And they started that about 10 years ago, and it grew, and people started watching it. They had it on Pursuit Channel, the Outdoors Channel, all that stuff on TV, YouTube. And they done their work, on social medias, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff, got it out there because, guys like Jordan Lee and Brian Thrift and all them guys that were fishing it. And so it really caught fire and it gained recognition. So it growed so much that year before last, Major League Fishing decided to buy FLW. And that threw a really big wrench into what everybody had known as, professional fishing for years. And what they done was they bought FLW, and Major League Fishing decided to start a whole new, highest level up tier, tournament series called the Bass Pro Tour. And what they done was they had zero entry fees, no entry fees all year. And they basically picked apart FLW and Bassmaster. And I'm gonna be honest, that's the one reason I do not like MLF is because they kind of dismantled Bassmaster and FLW as we had known for years and years, just to start this new tournament series that really nobody knew anything about. It was just kind of a weird thing like that. And they picked out the best of the best. Kevin Van Dam, Skeeter Reese, everybody, Greg Hackney, Jason Christie, all them guys. They went to the Bass Pro Tour.
Now, are there tournaments structured just like the Elite Series tournaments? Do they fish multiple days, and you have qualifying days, and they take, after so many days, they'll take like the top 50, and then it may go to 20, and then 10, or how do they set their tournaments?
They have a really weird format. It's one that I'm learning it as it goes. It's been going on for 2 years, and that's the thing. I'm still learning it. It's a really weird format. So what they do is they made a field of 80 guys. When they picked apart FLW and Bass, they made a field of 80 guys. And what they do is they have a qualifying round, knockout round, and a championship round. So, and it's over a 6-day stretch, long tournament. Well, five or 6 days. It's longer than an Elite Series or an FLW tour.
Right.
But they split it up. They split the guys in half. 40 guys fish on the first day and the third day. And then 40 guys fish on the second day and fourth day. And then what they do is they take the top 10, I believe. Yeah, they take the top 10 out of both of those, and they go on to the knockout round. After 2 days, they go on to the knockout round, the top 10 in Group A and Group B. And then on the 5th day of the tournament, they fish the top 20 on which is called their knockout round. And then on that day, they take the top 10 from those guys, and they qualify, and they go on to the 6th day, which is the championship round. And then, from there, whoever finishes in first.
But it's a format of like they're just going for numbers and pounds.
Right.
They have the marshals and everything, whereas like the Elite Series tournaments, it's a 5-fish deal,
right,
and all that kind of thing.
So Major League Fishing, what they've done for just for the Bass Pro Tour, is they have made it an every fish counts scheduled tournament like that. So what they do is they don't weigh in, like 6-ounce fish or something.
Sure, yeah.
Like the first year they done it, they had a 1 pound minimum on every lake that they went to.
Right.
And then people didn't really like it because they were like, oh, you're just going out there and you're catching 12 inchers and you're making a TV show about it. Nobody wants to see that. They kind of got that feedback, and then they changed it the next year to kind of a lake by lake, size limit.
Oh, okay.
And they mainly done 2 pounds on a 2 pound minimum on every single tournament. They might have done a 3 pound minimum on one of them, but I really can't remember for sure.
So like if they came to Cave Run, more than likely they would do the over 16 here.
Right, they would probably, if they came to Cave Run, they would probably do like a 4-ounce minimum. Probably, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. They'd probably do about a pound minimum on Cave Run. But when you go to lakes like Fork and things like that, they're going to the best fisheries in the world.
Oh yeah.
Fork, Okeechobee, places like that, Guntersville, and places like that, they can do a 2 pound minimum. So they do. The fish has to be 2 pounds or heavier. And what they do is if you catch 90 fish in a day and every one of them's over 2 pounds, you have that weight at the end of the day.
Sure.
You weigh in as many fish as you can possibly catch.
But now like, do they start back? They set everything back to zero. Like, they have their 2 groups fish 2 days.
Right.
Well, once those 2 groups are qualified out, then they take the top 10 and top 10, and those 20 guys are fishing against each other. Then they set everything back to zero, right?
Right. They set everything.
And then once they qualify out of that 20 group, they set back to zero again.
Right, for the championship round.
Okay.
That's how they do that. So they combine the weights for the first 2 days. So if you're say you were in Group A and you fished on the maybe Wednesday and Friday, you would combine your weight from Wednesday and Friday, and that would be your total weight. And if you were in the top 10 in that group, you would go on, you would fish the knockout round, and then then fish Thursday and Saturday if you were in Group B, and do the same thing.
I could see like watching the first 2 Elite Series tournaments here this year so far. That would have really changed. Gosh, every day, but that would have especially changed the final day. Maybe not so much at this Tennessee tournament that they just had, because that Gustafson led from wire to wire. But basically, everyone from about 3rd place on down, it would have changed everything. Because a lot of those guys, because some of those guys that actually made it to the top 25, or even some of the ones that made it to the top 10. They didn't make it to the top 10 until that 3rd day. I mean, they wouldn't have made that. They wouldn't have made that first cut even.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a different format. It's a format that's pretty fun to watch, kind of, and it's a really fun format to fish. I fished one tournament in the MLF format, and it was on Lake Cumberland. And it was the first time I'd ever done it. My whole life I'd fished 5 fish.
But they fish a full 8-hour turn or whatever. But they fish a full day, because some of those they would fish quarters or thirds or whatever.
They still do that. Yeah, they it's still an 8-hour day, but they split it up into period 1, period 2, and period 3. So you have like I can't remember how long the break is. It's either 15 or 30-minute break.
Well, do they start dropping guys out? Or because I've watched some of them that they've done that, and they only take the top so many guys each round.
They on the ones that are mainly on TV that you see, like the cup tournaments where you only have about 10 boats.
Mm-hmm.
They do that. It's called the sudden death round. And the
Okay.
sudden death is you have a target weight. Say you were going out and your target weight
Yeah.
was 17 pounds.
Right.
And you would go out and you would fish that format. Every fish counts. And the first
I
six,
saw that.
say there was 10 boats. The first six guys to reach the target weight of about 17 pounds, or whatever it is, would go out for the day, and then the rest, the four, if there was 10 boats, would just be eliminated from the round,
Mm-hmm.
and then they would move on to another round. And there were so many different rounds and things like that, and in that version of Major League Fishing, it was just so confusing to follow. It's fun to watch, but you really have to like look it up or something like that, the format, just to figure out what's going on and who's going on and who are they fishing against and things like that. So it's a little bit confusing.
Now, how do you reach, the top tier? Like, with the Bassmaster Elite Series, you basically fish these opens and things like that, and that's kind of where you get your start.
Right.
Now with the MLF, how do you get going on that?
Well, with Major League Fishing, they haven't changed, the grassroots, where that version of it where they move their way up and into the big leagues. What happens is you start out, like I am this coming week, is fishing the BFLs, and that's basically it's the pretty much the working man's professional tour.
Mm-hmm.
I heard Jeremy Lawyer, when he won the All-American, he was talking about that. He called it the working man's pro series. And you fish BFLs, which there's a lot of different divisions, all across the country. There's divisions in Florida, Gator division, things like that, Buckeye. In Ohio, and you got divisions all the way up in New York. You got divisions.
Some of the guys around here fish that Buckeye division, don't they?
Right. There's several guys who go up and fish the Buckeye division. They fish, Ohio River. I think there's a lake called Indian.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, they usually have their super tournament on like St. Clair or Sandusky Bay or something like that. So it's basically Ohio River and basically the state of Ohio is what the Buckeye division is. And you've got I think it's called the Illinois division. It's basically Illinois. You fish like the Ohio River out of Louisville, maybe the Ohio River out of Paducah, things like that. And then there's some other lakes up in Illinois that they fish. But there's a bunch of different divisions, and they have good payouts, and it's a reasonable entry fee. Fishing, and it is it's a boater and a co-angler tournament.
Mm-hmm.
You have two people on the boat, but they're fishing a completely separate tournament. It's just the boaters against the boaters and the co-anglers against the co-anglers.
Right.
It's $200 for a boater to enter and $100 for a co-angler to enter. So you're not breaking the bank, but you still.
Well, now if you and you're talking about the super tournament, that's just basically that's their fish off, but they combine a few divisions together for that.
The super tournament it's its own division. The super tournament, it stays.
Is it kind of a regional?
They have a different tournament called the regional after the super tournament. The super tournament at the end of the year it's the fifth tournament on the schedule. So every BFL division has 5 tournaments, and at the end of the year they have a super tournament, which basically the entry fee goes up just a little bit. I think it's $300 and $200. Just depends on if you're a boater or co-angler. But they also close to double the winnings. They go up to $9 to $10 if you win, and then even cut a check. If you just barely scrape in and 30th place and cut a check, you're still going to make your money back plus some. So that's the super tournament at the end of the year. And after that, what you were talking about, where the combined divisions, is the regional. So what I'm basically trying to do this year, my goal is to stay consistent. I want to cut checks, and at the end of the year, I want to make the regional. Okay. And what they do for the regional is I think there's 6 of them. I think there's 6 regionals, and what they do is they combine 4 or 5 divisions into one tournament. And what happens is over the year, MLF, they keep a point standings, and you stay based on how you do all year. That's your point standings. So if you win the tournament, you get X amount of points. Say if you win the BFL, you get 300 points.
Right.
Second place, you get 299. Third, you get 298. So on and so forth, and back through there. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they combine those points, and each division they take the top 45 fishermen in the point standings, and those 45 guys qualify for the regional championship. And so my regional, where I'm fishing the mountain division, is going to be on Wheeler Lake in Alabama in October. So what's going to happen there is I'm fishing against, I think the divisions are Mountain, Bama, Volunteer, and maybe Music City. I can't remember. I think that's the four that are fishing it. And they keep them relatively close, so they're not gonna make like New York guys fishing a division up there where they fish like St. Lawrence River and things like that. They're not gonna make them truck up their regional and go down to St. Johns River in Florida. They're gonna keep it relatively close. And what happens after the regional is the top 6 guys in each division. You're just fishing against the top 6 guys, or you're just fishing against the 45 guys in your division. Well, as a whole in the tournament, you're fishing against the whole 200 boats that are in it. But at the end of it, there will be a certain amount of guys who qualify for the BFL All-American, and that's what Jeremy Lawyer said. It's the working man's championship. That's you go out and you fish for $100,000, just like an FLW tour event or something like that. And so where I'd be fishing mountain, say I qualify and fish the regional. If I place in the top 6 guys out of the mountain division in my regional, then I'll qualify and go fish the BFL All American.
Right.
So that's kind of how that works.
Well, say then from that BFL All American, do you get like an invite to the MLF, or is there an automatic qualifier? Like you fish these Elite Series opens, and they're going to take so many guys. Right. And all like that. Is that kind of the way that's structured?
In a way, sort of. Basically, what happens is when you go to the All American, you're guaranteed to cut a check. It doesn't matter if you finish in 198th out of 200 boats. You're gonna cut a check, and I'm pretty sure just the winner or maybe the top 5. I really can't remember. A certain amount of guys, just very few in the tournament, qualify for the Toyota Series Championship at the end of the year. So that's going on. Is the Toyota Series, the Major League Fishing Toyota Series, is the next step up from the BFLs. So,
and see, we know some guys that fish at Toyota Series. That was my next question. So the Toyota Series is the next level,
right,
from where you're at in the BFLs.
From the BFLs, yeah. So the Toyota Series is basically the Toyota Series and the Bassmaster Opens are on the same, I guess, level. They're on the same level. It's when you go up and you start fishing Toyota Series, that's when you can really start being considered a professional fisherman, I think. Especially, it's different if you just fish, one of them. Say if you luck out in a Toyota Series or a Bassmaster Open comes to your home lake, obviously you're going to fish it because you'd have a good chance at getting a really good check or making a lot of money.
Right.
So it's different for guys who fish the Toyota Series and they fish all of the events in the Toyota Series. There are guys around here who fish them, like Brad Atkins. He fishes all the divisions, or he fishes all the tournaments in the Southeastern Division, I think is the division he fishes. And once you do that and you fish all of them and you try to make a living doing it, that's when I consider you a professional. But fishing the Toyota Series, it's similar. It's a boater and co-angler tournament, but really the only difference is you're fishing for a lot more money.
Yeah.
So pretty much if you win a Toyota Series, you're going to get around $50,000, I think, in that ballpark. They pay out really good in those tournaments, and they pay out.
And then they have a championship for the Toyota Series, and then from there, is that where your MLF invite comes into play?
It's after you get a certain. In the Toyota Series, it's the same way as the Bassmaster Opens, qualifying for the Elite Series. Yeah. They do the point standings, and at the end of the year, in the point standings, say in the Southeastern Division, if you are in like the top, I'm really not sure of the numbers, but if you're in the top, say 4 in points in the Southeastern Division, that's when you move on. You get your invite to go fish the pro circuit. So I'm pretty sure what they do in the Toyota Series, I think they don't hold me to it. I think they have a Southeastern, Northeastern, and a Midwest division. and maybe a Western. They do have a Western, and the top however many guys. We'll say I'm not sure of the numbers, so we'll say the top four. The top four guys in points from all those divisions, they then qualify to fish the Major League Fishing Pro Circuit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically it's the FLW Tour now. It's pretty much just the FLW Tour renamed. And then from the pro circuit, you cut your teeth there and you fish, and then at the end of the year, if you're in the top 10 in points on the MLF pro circuit, you qualify for the Bass Pro Tour, which is the Mac Daddy. What MLF calls the Mac Daddy of tournament fishing. It's the best of the best, whatever they want to call it.
Okay. Well, I was just curious about all that. The way these structures are set up. Gosh, it's time consuming. I mean, there's a lot of levels to go through there. Is Bassmaster that arduous, I guess you would say?
Bassmaster, it doesn't have near as many steps. Bassmaster is, which I mean, there's nothing stopping a guy from just to get off track a little bit, going to the MLF side and just starting straight off in the Toyota Series
and paying your money.
Right.
If you got enough money to pay those big entry fees.
Right. Yeah. You can start out in the Toyota Series and just work your way up like that, just in a year, however long it takes you to qualify for the pro circuit.
Mm-hmm.
But in Bassmaster, they just have basically two steps. One step, I guess. They have the Bassmaster Opens, which to me, a Bassmaster Open is probably one of the hardest tournaments to win that is out there.
Because you got guys that are, maybe past Elite Series qualifiers or even current Elite Series qualifiers. Right. I mean, you're fishing against some pretty world-class competition there.
Right. In a Bass Open, too, like I was talking about earlier, a local going and entering it, there's nothing stopping, local guys from entering Bass Opens and Toyota Series and things like that. Mm-hmm. So you've got a mix of, in a Bass Open, you've got a mix of local hammers, you got a mix of, especially where this past year we've seen guys trying to leave Major League Fishing. If that says anything, they were trying to leave it and go back to the Elite Series. And that's how you do it. You leave MLF and you go to the Bass Master Opens. And, you've seen guys last year like Justin Atkins, Scott Martin, Matt Robertson, guys like that.
Yeah.
Greg Hackney, Jason Christie, legends in the sport of fishing Bassmaster Open.
They let Hackney have kind of a bye, didn't they?
I can't remember if Hackney got the Legends kind of exemption to go straight back to the Elite Series.
But now Scott Martin, he had to qualify. I mean, he had to fish.
Right. Yeah. Scott Martin, he never fished the Elite Series before this year, so he was always fishing the FLW Tour, and he decided to leave that and go and fish the Bassmaster Opens and qualify for the Elite Series. That's what he decided to do, and it's a little bit different for guys. I know, like the first year they had Major League Fishing, we seen Gerald Swindle, he went to Bass Pro Tour, and Brandon Polnick, he went as well, former legends on the Elite Series, and they left MLF after a year, and then they got the Legends exemption to go back into the Elite Series.
Well, do you think that they gave some of those guys like Hackney and Swindle and some of those guys, you think they gave them that Legends exemption just to entice them to come back to Bassmaster? I kindly think that because they kindly left. I'm assuming they probably got a pretty good guaranteed money offer, and it just didn't kindly work out for them. So they had to have some reason to go back.
Right. So I kind of think that too, and really the main thing that I can think of from, like, say I was Hank Weldon, who was making these decisions, the Elite Series tournament director at Bass. The biggest thing for me is just having the names Swindle, Hackney, Polnick, guys like that fishing the Elite Series, because that's who people want to watch. You've got all these new guys coming in. It's fun to watch these new guys like Kyle Welcher and all them guys catching them and things like that. But their name really isn't out there yet. But if you get guys in here like Jason Christie, Greg Hackney, Gerald Swindle, those guys, that's who everybody wants to watch. Just like the name of it is, that's the Legends exemption. They're legends of the sport, and I think that's kind of why they brought him back into it. They gave him a guaranteed spot into the Elite Series, and really it was just because they wanted, they wanted their fans to have somebody to really.
I'd be kind of hacked off though. Say if I was one of these guys, I've been paying my dues, and I have fished and fished and fished, and I finally hit a good run this year. And then, maybe I'm really close and got just about enough points to qualify to make it to the Elite Series. How they kindly weed out the lower tier guys, the lower point guys, and bring in some new blood every year. And to think that I was just ready to make that next step, and then to think I might get knocked out just because someone decided to leave one tournament series and come to another tournament series. And I get it, because they are who they are, but still, they did leave. And I don't know. I just think that they like Scott Martin. I mean, he had to fish his way back into it.
Right. I can see that standpoint, but I think the deal is they didn't. I don't think they butted anybody out of it just to add Swindle and Hackney and them back into it. I don't think.
But they haven't lost anything. I mean, you look the way Hackney's fishing this year.
Right.
I mean, man, he's been lights out. I mean, he's ahead in the AOY, and he had that what did he finish? 7th or 8th, 6th, 7th or 8th there in Tennessee. And then he had that good finish down there on the St. John's too. So, they didn't go wrong by doing what they did, but still.
That's just Hackney being Hackney, though. If I was a young guy like what's his name, John Hamner and things like that, Kyle Welch, or those young guys on the Elite Series, believe me, I'd be shaking in my boots if I seen Greg Hackney, Jason Christie, Brandon roll up to like at Blast Off. I see that big old Mountain Dew and Toyota wrapped Phoenix that Gerald Swindle was running. I know that them guys, they're there for a reason. That's why they got the legend exemption, because they're stone cold killers. They catch them all. They catch them all over, and they catch them all year long, no matter where they go.
Well, this is on the same subject, but it's a little bit different area. You're fishing your first what I would consider professional tournament this year, maybe the one of the lower tiered professional tournaments, but still it's a pro tournament. And the takeoffs, like all these local tournaments around here, you draw a number, and there's a guy out there on a megaphone, and he's calling out numbers, but he gets down into basically 15 or 20, and it's pretty much shotgun after that. Most people are going, but I've noticed like on a lot of those Elite Series tournaments, it seems like they get those guys kind of lined up.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more orderly. Are you kind of expecting that this weekend?
Yeah, every big tournament is really organized, especially with the big organizations like FLW and MLF now and Bassmaster and things like that. They're very organized, and that's the one thing I can say. The most organized tournament I ever fished in my life was a 325 boat national championship up in Wisconsin. You'd think it would just be an absolute mess.
Now, actually, who actually operated that?
That was through TBF, which is kind of a side standard of MLF.
But it was run by basically a professional organization.
Right,
That's what they did.
TBF is basically just the high school. It's a different version of FLW, pretty much.
Okay.
But it was the most organized tournament I've ever fished. They had it separated out and told everybody if your boat number 250, just go towards the back somewhere. If your boat 50 or lower, if your boat 10 or something like that, stay up towards the front. And in those tournaments, like you said, they take you out. You're in a line, one by one. You talk to the guys out there while you're floating around waiting on blast off. You'll holler over at somebody, hey, what boat number are you? And
try to gang up. You try to get at least get within the ballpark of the group you're supposed to be in.
Right, but they keep it really organized. They call boat by boat. It takes a little bit longer, but it's way better.
Now, do they stagger the weigh-ins at these big deals?
They do. Okay. In a bigger tournament, it depends on the organization, but. Like the Bassmaster Open, they call it the high school open that I fished on Cumberland back in October. They divvied it out in 15-minute increments. So if you were if you were boat 1 through 15, you or no, I think it was 10-minute increments. If you were boat 1 through 15, you weighed in at I think it was 3 o'clock. And if you were boat 16,
Now, is that what time you had to check in?
right, that's the time you had to check in. You didn't have to be off the water. You didn't have to be on the dock. What they do is they have a boat out there in the center of the creek or wherever your buoy is, where you have to be inside of by that time. They have a boat there, and you just get your weigh-in chip, or not your weigh-in chip, but your boat number, the little chip they give you, and as long as you throw it in the net by 3 o'clock, you're good to go.
Okay.
So,
And that's pretty standard as far as return times for even local tournaments. You know, that's pretty much standard setup. Well, I was curious about how all that worked, and everything. But yeah, and I guess one reason they have it run, so professionally is, they want you to have a good experience, the anglers to have a good experience, so they'll keep fishing, that particular event, even if that's all you ever wanted to fish was just that Mountain Division BFL, and you didn't have aspirations to move on up the ladder. By them giving you a good experience, you'll keep coming back to fishing.
Right.
Whereas if you get there and it's just a big old convoluted mess, and
starting 20
nobody knows anything, and you've got boat 200 taking off with the first wave, and you come back in to check in and you can't find where to put your chip in or whatever, it's a bad deal. And so I get that, and that is a good deal that they run them like that, because that's how they make their money. The more anglers and the more fishermen and the better experience. And I would imagine that as you move on up the ladder, the logistics of fishing those tournaments probably gets easier, because those guys have been there and they know the routine and they know the deal, and a lot of those guys, that's how they make their living.
Right.
So
yeah, when you go to fish like a BFL or something like that, everybody, they fished enough. When you get to that level, you fished enough to where you know what you're doing. You've done enough tournaments, you know how everything works. And even in those BFLs, like just looking at past events and things like that in the Mountain Division, I'm expecting more than likely 200 boats Saturday, which is a huge field.
And the weather's supposed to be pretty nice.
Right, it's going to be nice, and it's a little bit different if it's pouring the rain and it's 45 degrees. But
sure.
The weather's going to be nice. There's going to be 200 boats probably, but the best thing about those tournaments is they're extremely organized. They take off every boat one by one, and they'll do that same thing. They'll stagger the weigh in. I'm assuming. I don't know exactly how they do it. That's something they'll go over in the pre-tournament meeting. But I'm assuming like boats 1 through 20 will weigh in at 2:30. I think we're taking off at 6:30, so they'll probably. I think the first flight will probably be back.
Now, are they going to live stream the weigh-in?
Yeah, the weigh-in will be live streamed. It'll be on MajorLeagueFishing.com, or if you follow Major League Fishing on Facebook, they'll have that on there as well.
So boom or bust, we'll be able to know how you do.
Exactly. You'll know how I do right as soon as I take them across the stage.
All right. Well, that's a good deal. Well, I guess that's going to wrap it up again for today. Like I said, this is Dan Hook and Evan Barker here at Hook Outdoors. And we were just talking a little bit today about tournament fishing and kind of the evolution of it and how it's set up. And, we'd like to encourage people to get out and if you have a local bass club or a local fishing club, or if there's a lake in your area, more than likely, especially during the warmer months, there is always someone that is putting on a little old buddy tournament about every night through the week or on the weekends, and I would like to encourage you to jump into that. It's a lot of fun, if nothing else. You might make a little money, but you're not going to go broke doing it either. And I know all the guys, 99% of the guys that do that here at Cave Run, they're really decent guys, and I would like to assume that it's that way on most lakes. And everybody will help you along. They'll make sure you don't catch fish or try to weigh in fish you aren't supposed to, and and all that kind of thing. So that's one thing I would like to encourage everyone to do, just to get out, and especially if you got kids, get those kids involved in it. I mean, it's a good thing to get your kids exposed to, and get them to get involved in. A lot of high schools anymore, they have fishing teams. This COVID stuff isn't going to last forever. Things will get back on an even keel sooner or later, and all these events and everything. And it's just a good thing to get into. And Evan, you got anything to add to that?
Not really. I came through, worked up the ranks in high school fishing. I can say the same thing that Dan said. It's a really good program. It's been around for about 10 or so years, and it's growing every single year. It's huge. You can fish tournaments all over the country, or you can stay as local as you want to.
Yeah.
So it's a growing thing. It's a really good thing to get into. All the people are good, and it's a really good experience. So if you got kids, or if you're in the high school age, and you're going to high school and you don't have a team, or maybe you do, start one, or go join it. Talk to somebody, talk to your teachers, anything like that who can get you started in it. It's a really good thing to get started in.
All right. Well, folks, that's going to do it for today. And as we like to say here, just get outdoors with Hook Outdoors.
The only sound more enjoyable than the plop of your lure breaking on the surface of the water is the high-pitched squeal of your reel as you pull in your first bass of the day. To help ensure the first catch on your line is a fish, try the SB57 by Bill Lewis, the creators of Rattle Trap. The SB57 features a wide coffin-shaped bill that enables the bait to easily drive through brush, stumps, rocks, and more. Plus, its computer chip construction gives it that tight wiggle you and your next bass are looking for. The SB57 is Mark Daniels Jr.'s signature lure and is available at Hook Outdoors Tackle Shop, located on Cave Run Lake, or rattletrap.com.